So I wanted to welcome everybody to Digital Davos 2023 again. This is a panel that I've been looking forward to doing with Gayatri. Gayatri is my co-host from India, and she is on as well. So
Yes.
Gayatri, I'm going to turn it over to you to give your initial comments, and then we'll take it from there.
Great. Hi all, wish you a very happy new year. For too long, the gender gap for economic growth and remuneration has left women disadvantaged. This panel examines where the work still needs to be done, how gender equality has unfortunately replicated in many disruptive industries, and way forward. Welcome to Davos, Digital Davos 2023 edition, and it's an honor and privilege to be a part of such an esteemed panel. And thank you, Mr. Anand Singh of J Capital, for making this happen. A quick note on the kind of, as of 2021, India recorded a gender ratio of approximately 1,020 women to every 1,000 men. According to the source, this marked the first time of the gender ratio in the country leaned towards women. Women in India, I guess everywhere, remain extremely underrepresented in leadership positions. However, female-run businesses are steadily increasing in number all over the world. According to the World Bank, there are about 8 million to 10 million formal small and medium enterprises with at least one female owner in developing countries. Women are making significant contributions to the national economies, contributing to poverty reduction and employment creation. The potential of women entrepreneurship development is attracting more and more attention from international organizations, government, and international development and stakeholders. Despite this growing momentum, women around the world still face discrimination and gender barriers that prevent them from unleashing their full potential. As per UN Women, this is quite an interesting study. Globally, over 2.7 billion women are legally restricted from having the same choice of jobs as men. Of 189 economies assessed in 2018, 104 economies still have laws preventing women from working in specific jobs. 59 economies have no law on sexual harassment in the workplace, and in 18 economies, husbands can legally prevent their wives from working. A common question I'm sure everybody goes through, or when I've gone through many times, is that how do you balance your family and work? and that is something which is which nobody asks a man. To promote gender equality, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship development, interventions have thus focused on women, hoping to challenge the gender norms and put them at an economic disadvantage in comparison with men. Would kick off with a powerful quote by Michelle Obama: "There is no limit to what we as women can accomplish. No country can ever truly flourish if stifle the potential of its women and deprives itself from the contribution of its half of the citizens." It's an honor to have a dynamic women leaders across the globe who are stellar contributors across diverse sectors and creating, aspiring, empowering, despite of facing challenges. I would request the pleasure of Mr. Anand Singh to introduce them.
Well, I'm going to do this as I've been told many a time. A man need not introduce any woman. A woman can stand for herself. Coming from six sisters, who are highly accomplished, I can say that I am proud of each and every one of them, and I am proud of all the women that are on this panel, and of any woman that is contributing in any way to herself, and to society. I'm going to turn it over to these lovely women in the studio with us today here in Los Angeles, and then Kanika will have you come in and talk a little about your positive role in creating economy, and powering a juggernaut of a company in India, and what you see as the future potential for your company based on your contributions, and the same thing for other women, and people that are around the world embracing the fact that women are contributing stability to the economy. So I will turn it over to you to talk a little bit about Valerie.
Okay, just introduce myself.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm Valerie Shepard, and I'm very honored to be here. I was for 34 years a leader at a company called Procter & Gamble, makes a lot of products. Hopefully you all look nice and well groomed, so I think you're using our products very well. I retired a year and a half ago as the treasurer, controller, and group vice president for a large company transition that we were leading. And I spent 6 years on the Federal Reserve Bank board in Cleveland. I've had the opportunity to live and work in Asia and Europe, as well as I'm now based in Cincinnati. So I've spent a lot of my career, probably the early part of my career, avoiding anything to do with diversity and inclusion because I felt like I had such a spotlight on me anyway. I didn't want to be leading the effort, to then growing up a bit and realizing that I had a strong role to play to bring other women forward as well. And so I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy we have this topic on the agenda.
Go ahead. Thank you. And thank you for having me as well. I'm Alice Jacobs. I'm a Harvard-trained medical doctor turned entrepreneur. I started my first company in medical school during my 3rd year when I lost a patient from a staph infection on my watch. And I went from an unmet need to getting multiple products to the FDA and products onto 5 continents. And in so doing, helped make PCR part of routine clinical testing. Since that time, I've worked as a venture capitalist, and I've served as an entrepreneur in residence at Caltech. And for the last 5 years, I've been advising CEOs and lawmakers on their health and AI strategies. And I'm getting to now focus on something incredibly impactful that allows me to draw on everything I've done in my career, combining biotech, medtech, AI. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, so just want to preface this with saying that this is not a poor me panel. This is more a panel about the fact that these women that are on this panel, and including my co-host, are extremely accomplished and sometimes undervalued, but at the same time have risen above any kind of challenges to shine a light that I don't think any male could have done in their place for the most part. And Gayatri, coming back to the comment on how do you balance your home life, certainly that's an interesting challenge, isn't it? I stayed home with my son a couple of years and loved the experience. And yes, I thought it was different. I have a few friends of mine that have done the same thing, that have taken a role. But at the same time, turning it back to you, what do you think is the most important thing that gender and women have been able to show very clearly over the past 50 years that, and what do you think the path lies ahead?
Very interesting question, Anand. Well, women always have been multitaskers all their lives. They've been multitaskers. They manage finance, they manage home, they manage children. I think it's more got to do with where we are not asking for validation, but we definitely wouldn't mind an appreciation. That's something which is there, and I'm sure that goes to male too. I mean, they do. They also don a lot of hats. But when coming back to the professional life of a woman, because there are at least I can speak for myself as well. The motion picture and the media and entertainment background that we belong, it's very daunting. It's very daunting. There is 365. You've got to be available 24/7, 365 days, because there is some or the other deadline which is constantly going on, and that break really takes a lot of task. Then when you come back, you look at your family and they look at you, and it's I think what is important is not to normalize the guilt factor. Oh my God, I haven't been able to go to my children's PTA, or I've not been able to go, or spend time, or maybe cook the food. So I guess it is it's something which is together, that if we move together. And a very important point, and I'd love to kind of bring it up, is a lot has got to do with the conditioning. And particularly, I think on the way forward, if you look at it, probably when we start off, when we are born, at that time, there is a certain theory and there's a conditioning where our grandmothers, our mothers, tell women to kind of like handle a lot of things. And yes, and then the primary importance is importance of the family. How about turning it backwards, or how about turning the other way around and saying that, hey, you know what, let's train the men, let's engage men, from the time when they can engage themselves more on the family household, whether it's family household or whether it's community or from the policy making. So I guess that is the way it is. And coming from my industry, where mostly I come from, it's been 25 years that I've been in media and entertainment with various companies, from Star to Viacom to Reliance, and I've been kind of looking out to kind of distribute movies worldwide, which is Bollywood movies worldwide and internationally, which is typically a male-dominated market, where you're dealing with the distributors and you're negotiating with them. And initially, there's always a certain classic conditioning where when they hear a woman's voice from the other side, and they feel like, oh my God, they can just kind of negotiate and they can just kind of like make their way through. But it's not. It's not. We are far more hard negotiators, actually. And I think what is more interesting is also to have the domain knowledge completely. That's really helped me a lot. To have a great domain knowledge of what we are talking about and how we are talking about, even in terms of, and it's not about equality, or it's not about, it's just about being together and walking together. And that's the sentiment that, that I think the path lies over there.
Kanika, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. All this while I've been trying to do a mental count of the number of Procter & Gamble products I've used since the morning. And I'm still trying to put all of them together. So thank you for that. I'm sure it's a lot of very, very strong women behind Procter & Gamble who make us look as good as we do each day. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm Kanika. I run a private jet and helicopter business based out of India. And I started this company when I was 21, and we're Asia's largest fleet of private jets and helicopters as we stand today. And to tell you a funny anecdote with regard to, how rare it was to have women in this business. I remember the first time I went to make a pitch to a customer, I think I was 21 or 22 at that time. I walked into a boardroom full of men, and I was the last person to walk inside. And the owner of the business turns around and says, "Ma'am, can you ask everyone what they would like? Would they like tea or coffee?" That's where all my motivation, courage, everything, as a 21-year-old who's just going to pitch a new business to someone who's really established, it all went to the floor. I had tears coming out of my eyes. And it took all my courage to, actually walk into that room, make the pitch, tell the guy, look, I'm the person who owns this company. And he actually turned around and said, "Are you sure? Cupcakes are really trending right now. Why don't you look at doing baking? You really want to be in this business? You're very trendy. Have you tried being a fashion designer? Are you sure you can run planes?" And stuff like that. And it took me a lot of time to convince him that we are the right people to fly with. And funnily enough, today when I stand here 10 years later, 12 years later, he's actually become our biggest champion. He's got us the maximum number of customers. I can never be more grateful to him. And after meeting me, he took a consensus effort to get more and more women into his business. And he took an oath to, have 40% women in his business in the next 6 years, which he did. So I think my biggest learning was that, change begins right here, right? So it's up to us to bring that change about as much as or as little as we would like to, and women ultimately need to stand up for women. So I think I don't know what the definition of a feminist is, but I'm definitely someone who believes that that we are all equal, and we don't deserve preferential treatment or special treatment, and we should stop saying an award for best woman this and an award for best woman that. It should be an award for the best of this. And I'm someone who loves to encourage and motivate young women, so I mentor a lot of young girls. I'm starting a fund which is going to be selectively investing in women-led businesses. But yeah, that's about it from me.
That is amazing, and I love your anecdote. Alice, I'm going to jump back to you and say, that sounded like a conversation we had. So,
Yes.
what I would say is, tell us a little bit about, your experiences and how you see the world today and how you see it going forward.
Well, in some ways, we've come a long way. And in some ways, I feel like not much has changed. I think about experiences that I had at the World Economic Forum in 2006 versus now. Your story, Kanika, really resonates with me. When I was a young CEO, I was 26, I think, and I was doing my first M&A deal. And I came early to get prepped in the room. And the admin from the other side came in and she said, oh, can you help me? I'm going to bring in the snacks. And so she wanted me to help bring in the donuts. And I was trying to prepare my documents because we were going to walk out and do this deal. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I just looked in the mirror and I decided to become the person that I wanted to be in that meeting. I knew what I wanted out of that meeting, and I just came back out and I decided, I'm from California, so I smile a lot. I decided that I was not going to smile for the entire 4 hours. And I changed my body posture. I actually put my arms out. And it was outstanding. We got the deal done. We got all the terms we wanted, and then some. And at the end of the meeting, these gentlemen came up to me and they said, you would be so much less intimidating if you smiled more. And I thought, yes, that was the main mission. So I think the only thing that's changed now is I've stopped caring as much. And I just am that person because I've done many M&A transactions. And so I just, and the thing is, people, they may not get the context. And so I sometimes bring them along, and I maybe I just don't get as bothered by it, but we still have a lot more to do.
Yeah, and something that Kanika said really resonated in saying that, it's what you are and what you become, and that's exactly what I'm hearing from you. Valerie, what are your thoughts on this?
It is who you are and what you become, but you don't become that always by yourself, right? So some of us have had these moments. I've had some as well. And in an M&A deal, I was leading the deal, and guy I really liked leaned back and he wanted a certain thing that I wasn't planning to give him, of course. And he leans back and he goes, "Oh my gosh, Valerie, don't be such a girl." Or why, stop acting like such a girl. And I was a vice president at one of the largest companies, and in that bubble, people didn't have as much guts. I was boss, so they weren't giving me a lot of crap. And but outside, and since I've retired, I've noticed it so much that the way we have to get there is to share these stories, because when you're young, you don't realize that people can overcome these stories and so forth. So we have to share that. And we really do need to bring the men along and help educate them. And they don't realize they're interrupting, right? But I get interrupted so many times, and I've learned to just keep talking.
You're right. Exactly.
You just never stop talking.
Yeah.
And they'll
That's
keep,
exactly.
and you just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. And it feels like you're talking over someone for 20 minutes. It's probably 20 seconds, but maybe longer. But that's what you have to do to be heard. Or let me finish, the mom finger helps a lot. And so sharing some of these tips and tricks and just getting real and practical about it with the other people, not just women, but women and men. I was with my son. I have 2 boys, and they're now grown, of course. And we were at a dinner and with mostly men. And I had mentioned that I lived in Japan, and they said, "Oh, it's really difficult for women in Japan." And I said, "Well, and I started to talk. And then the gentleman started telling me all about the article he read about how difficult it was for women in Japan, right? On and on and on. And so we got back in the car and my son goes, I never knew what mansplaining was until now.
Yes.
Because here you're the woman who lived in Japan and he's telling you.
Right.
So I think, but I am disheartened a little bit when I hear younger women still facing these things. So I think we have to up our game, and we have to, we had a program called Males Advocating for Real Change, Mark, and it was all about educating the men on their own, so they had a safe place about these unconscious biases that they have and we have. And it was wonderful because they all have wives, sisters, daughters, just like you, and they want them to succeed. So we have to bring the men along, I think.
Yeah, no secret in the fact that my mother went to Peabody, which is now in Nashville. And in 1950, she needed an economics course. And the professor said to her, women are not allowed to take economics, and I will not let you take it. And so she had to challenge it in an official letter to the Board of Trustees to say that she would pass it. And the professor made the exam as difficult as he could possibly imagine, and yet she still passed, right? And so challenges have not, it seems like there's a, and that was a much earlier generation. So coming forward to generation, challenges exist, but challenges exist amongst women as well. We've talked about this a little bit about women not being so nice to other women. So Alice, I mean, give me a little bit about this.
That's the part that really I find the most upsetting. And anything that I can do to help contribute to addressing that, I am deeply committed to. I was part of a commission post 9/11 when there was the anthrax scare, and was flown down to Washington, and had already done quite a bit of work in looking at pathogens and mutations and genetic drift and a number of things, early detection, warning signs. And so I had a lot to contribute to the conversation. And I sat at the table and I contributed as everyone else did. And there was someone there that I was really excited to meet. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, "Hi, I'm Alice Jacobs." And she looked at me and she turned around and she walked away.
Yeah.
And you don't forget those moments. And I don't care who you are. A human is a human. So we have to start treating each other. I think that there was this feeling that it was harder for us, so we have to make it more difficult for you. But we have to work with each other. And it doesn't mean currying favor or making it easier on someone. It's being fair. It's just being fair and decent and reasonable with one another.
So are you saying that women are holding other women to a higher standard?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had a resident when I was in medical school who pulled me aside one day and she said, "Why are you here? You're wasting your time. You shouldn't be doing medicine. Medicine is awful." I said, "Well, that's my choice to make." There was never a man who ever did that.
I remember one woman who was really wanting to help, and she said to me when I got promoted at a young age, and she said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm what I was 41 or whatever at the time." And she goes, "Well, you look like you're 21." Because I did. I looked really young until now, unfortunately, but I did look really young for my age at that time. And then I had another woman who said, "Val, we do make makeup. So could you, maybe your hair or."
Wow.
And these things, that's in a professional context.
Yeah.
In the home life with, because my husband dropped off and picked up, I had one time said, "Oh, there's the phantom mom," because I would, or I remember volunteering, which I tried to do when I could. And I'm the treasurer of Procter and Gamble, and the woman was nervous about giving me the cash box for the snacks. And she's like, "You need to be really careful with this." And then I realized, though, on my side, I'm running into track meets dressed like this with a cell phone in my hand and my high heels, intimidating them unknowingly and not wanting to. So I do think we've just got to all try to break down those barriers. So
tough. Yeah, one of my first bosses was at Citibank was a woman, and she was a VP at the time, and a very knowledgeable, respected woman. But there would be customers that would come in that would say, "I don't want to speak to her. I'd much rather speak to you." And I've been on the job for like 3 months. I barely know the systems. And whatever you say to me, I literally have to go back to her. And it was interesting for me, because it was the first time that I actually experienced this in a workplace. And the funny part about it is that it just seemed normal for the other side. This gentleman just thought this was the normal way of doing things. And so it's a really interesting side on one side, where women are progressing so rapidly through various industries now, where it wasn't something that was possible. And the same thing that she used to face as I faced myself, which was, as a woman, as a vice president who was leading credit, that was not something that was acceptable in banking at the time. And it would just be like, "Are you a branch manager? I mean, because you dress properly, so you must be at the most a branch manager." And that was kind of the preset limit, if you would, for that time. But moving on to the last side of it, Kanika, what are your thoughts on advancing forward, going the way forward? You've inspired people to do the right thing and to promote inclusion. Some parting thoughts from you.
I think, for me, what's really important, right, like everyone pointed out, is women need to stand up for women. And why I reiterate this again and again is, you'll be familiar with the boys' club, right? Have you ever heard of the women's club or the girls' club? No, because it doesn't exist. And I've seen this more often than not. And I beg to differ a little bit with Alice over here, where I say, maybe sometimes you need to be a little more partial towards women, to include them, to, as a leader, as a manager, because you just need to show that extra, inch of warmth, or go the extra mile to include women. As a company, we decided that we'll be gender neutral in our cockpit 2 years back, and we'll make sure we have one woman in every cockpit of the plane. I had a customer who boarded a plane and called me the time we did this, saying that, "Kanika, there's a cabin crew sitting in the plane and trying to fly it." And, I was really shocked. I thought maybe there's actually a problem that's happened. The cabin crew is trying to sit in the cockpit and play around or something like that. And I was zapped. So I immediately called up my manager and I said, "What happened? Why is there a cabin crew flying the plane?" He said, "No, ma'am, it's our newest pilot." So I called up the customer and I said, "Well, it's our newest pilot, and this is where it is. She's a great pilot and she's fully qualified, etc., etc." The customer refused to fly the flight. He got off the plane. He said, "Kanika, I'm going to wait for you to change the pilot." He was going to the other city for 3 hours. He was using the private jet to go for that meeting and come back. And it would take us 2 hours to enable a pilot change, get him a fresh plane. He did all of that. And then he took an oath that he'll never fly with us again. That he did 5 flights with another company and came back to us and still flew with a woman pilot. But that's where the world is today. A lot of my senior women pilots tell me, "Why are you hiring 22-year-old girls and teaching them how to fly?" Well, because I believe it's my responsibility to do so. If I don't enable an enabling environment for women, then who else is going to do it? So I think the way forward for me is very clear. I know I sound a little confused here, but whilst I don't think women should want to be treated differently, or women should expect preferential treatment, I think it's up to women who've made it. Maybe they made it with their own hard work because someone's helped them out, or they've had to really struggle. It's up to you to ensure the next generation doesn't struggle. It's up to you to ensure that you leave a better world for the rest of the girls out there, for your own daughters, for others' daughters, etc. And enable a world where you don't have to have this panel discussion about where is the world for women today. I mean, I think that's the future for me, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think Alice and Valerie and Gayatri will all agree that there should be no need for this panel in the future. There should be no need for this conversation. There should be no need for any form of discrimination. So with that, I'd like to thank these wonderful women for having joined me and educated me a little bit more. And I hope that this education has been helpful to all of you. What I will say in parting is, Hinduism is one of the oldest religions or continuously practiced religions in the world. The original trinity in Hinduism had Brahma as the creator and Shiva as the destroyer. But the god that ran the world was Shakti, which literally translates to power. And that is, in my viewpoint, something that we knew in ancient times that we have somehow forgotten and marginalized. And it is important to remember that wherever women are, they are the ones that are powering whatever is happening in that environment. So with that, again, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so
all.
much.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.